André Onana is extremely close to replacing David De Gea at Manchester United. A magnificent signing. He's close to Ten Hag, good with his feet, has just made the Champions League final. A world class. Wait a minute, wasn't he done for doping a few years back? Yeah, I remember. He was banned for a whole year for cheating, wasn't he? And now United want him. Typical. Manchester United's newest or soon-to-be signing, André Onana, looks to be a perfect fit for the Red Devil rebuild under Ten Hag. But you may remember when the Cameroon international received a ban from football for doping back in the day. Are Man United about to sign a cheater? What was he actually banned for? Well, I'll be diving deep into the whole scandal surrounding André Onana. On the 5th of February 2021, André Onana was officially banned from football and all football-related activities for 12 months by UEFA after testing positive for a banned substance, which in this case was furosemide, a diuretic. The test was conducted on 30th of October 2020 in an out-of-competition drugs test ahead of the Champions League. Onana, then aged 24, had been Ajax's first-team goalkeeper since the 2016-17 season and had been extremely successful with the club, helping them to Champions League semi-final, a Europa League final and 2 Eredivisie titles. Ajax were now teeing their first choice between the sticks up for a £50 million summer move with links to Chelsea and Borussia Dortmund. A spectacular fee considering their initial payment. Now, Onana's world had been ripped apart. Ajax were without their best goalkeeper and forced to find a replacement. But what did Onana himself have to say for this? Well, when the ban was announced, Onana took to his Instagram account, as all honest people do, claiming that he'd taken a banned substance by accident, stating that he'd woken up on the morning of October 30th, unwell, and tried to find an aspirin. Mistakenly, he instead took his girlfriend's prescription, which contained furosemide. On Onana's part then, this was just a terrible mistake, one that he thought everyone would just forget about. And the officials were somewhat on his side. In a statement from Ajax, they said, the disciplinary body of the Football Association has stated that Onana had no intention of cheating. However, the European Football Association believes, on the basis of the applicable anti-doping rules, that an athlete has a duty at all times to ensure that no banned substances enter the body. This is a terrible setback, said Edwin van der Sar, at the time Ajax's managing director and someone who, here at TFQ, we wish the very best after the recent sad news. André is a top goalkeeper who has proven his worth for Ajax for years and is very popular with the fans. We had hoped for a conditional suspension or for a suspension much shorter than these 12 months because it was arguably not intended to strengthen his body and thus improve his performance. Let's highlight that word, arguably. You see, at the time, a lot of reports were quick to state Onana had been caught for doping, and according to the Google definition, this is correct. But the drug furosemide itself doesn't actually have any physical enhancement to Onana's performance. Furosemide is actually very commonly found in doping cases because it can be used to cover up the usage of other substances. Substances that would enhance Onana's performance if he was taking them. That would be cheating. So arguably, Edwin is right. Arguably, the drug was not intended to strengthen Onana's body, but it could have been intended to hide another drug that was enhancing Onana's performance. Now, what Onana is claiming could well be true. He could have woken up in a daze, walked into the bedroom and grabbed what he thought was aspirin to relieve his symptoms. But let's think about the context here. André Onana is a top athlete with a lot of experience by this point, well aware of the random drug tests that can spring up and how careful a person like him needs to be with what he ingests. Yet, he's woken up with a sniffle and grabbed the first thing he could find and taken it. Surely, he'd be a lot more careful. According to the UEFA's anti-doping regulations, Article 3.2, players are responsible for knowing what constitutes an anti-doping rule violation and the substances and methods which have been included on the prohibited list, and for familiarising themselves with these anti-doping regulations. Perhaps though, as Onana claimed, the packaging on the aspirin and the furosemide prescription were very similar and he simply picks up the wrong product and taken it. But I'm not sure about the Netherlands exactly, but in England there's quite a clear difference between over-the-counter products like aspirin and a prescribed product. Things like paracetamol have a very clear branding on them, whilst a prescription would have a label on it with a lot more detail explaining what it is and how often you should take it. An idea that's shared by Derek from More Plates, More Dates, a YouTuber who specialises in these kind of substances, who did a video on the news of Onana when it broke. To clear things up, I then took to the comments section of Derek's video, and here's what I found. Let me clear some things up, said Fifth. In the Netherlands and Germany alike, you can't really get any drugs over the counter. You get everything in a pharmacy, even say aspirin. Also, the packaging of prescription versus non-prescription medication doesn't look any different. This might be very different in the States. Hope it helps, which is where Derek is from. Random 6310 said, pharmaceutical grade medication isn't put in bottles in the Netherlands. They come in the same type of boxes that the paracetamol comes in. The boxes look pretty similar, but the name of the pills on the box are pretty damn big, so it'd be hard to switch them up. Having said that, the strips that contain the actual pills look very identical and are kind of hard to distinguish from other strips of medication once they are out of their box. You really shouldn't store them out of the box, but it happens a lot. MXM_Prime2191 said, I've been working in a pharmacy for years in the Netherlands, and I can confirm that there's painkillers here with basically the same packaging as furosemide. Aspirin is a bad example because it has a unique packaging, but generally, when referring to painkillers, people say aspirin, even if it's paracetamol. Let's clear things up then. MXM_Prime kind of indicates towards the fact that what Onana is saying could be true. He's saying that the packaging between aspirin and furosemide is quite similar, and considering he's worked in a pharmacy, maybe that's quite a decent source. But furosemide is commonly found in doping cases by the World Anti-Doping Agency, as pointed out by Derek in this article. As you can see in the table, from 2003 to 2007, furosemide is the most commonly detected drug in doping cases, and year on year, the positive samples get bigger and bigger. So if Onana is doping with a more serious substance, it is quite likely that maybe he'd try and use this to cover it up. However, someone skilled in this, someone that understands these substances, would also be well aware of this and well aware of the fact that furosemide can spring up in these kind of tests. As also suggested by Derek, perhaps the advice that Onana was secretly getting wasn't quite efficient. Another point made by Derek is that why would Onana keep his medication near his girlfriend's medication? If he uses aspirin when he feels ill, surely, if he knew his partner was being prescribed a drug by her doctor and he wasn't sure what was in it, then he'd have to put it in another place. And this might sound a bit dramatic, but it has to be. It's very hard to convince me that Onana, a man that was being paid millions by Ajax, wouldn't take these kind of precautions considering a whole year of his career is on the line. And it could have been much worse for Onana. When looking at the literature surrounding this incident, I found other incidents where athletes argued that accidentally consumed a banned drug and then been caught for it. In the case of Levi Cadogan in 2018, a Barbadian sprint athlete, Levi's case is very similar to Onana's in that he was also found with the presence of furosemide in an out-of-competition test. He claimed that on the morning of his eventual test, he too woke up with a headache and reached for a paracetamol in his medicine cupboard. He later realised that he'd taken Lasix, a brand of furosemide that looked very similar to paracetamol. He had no idea it was in his house, and it was in fact owned by his housemate, who was a horse jockey, using the drug to lose weight. In this case, Cadogan did actually keep his medication separate from his housemate, but according to him, it was mistakenly placed with his. Cadogan was banned for 2 years for this violation, and initially Onana should have been 2 years as well. However, if Onana was able to provide proof of no significant fault or negligence on his part, according to UEFA, it would be reduced to 1 year, which he did. However, the court ruled some blame did fall on his hands, and therefore persisted with the year ban instead of none. In the June of 2021, Ajax did appeal the ban in an attempt to have it reduced and succeeded after a 4-hour online call with the Court of Arbitration for Sport. Now, Onana would only be banned for 9 months, meaning he'd return to training on September 4th and game time in November. Ajax were hoping the ban would be reduced enough for Onana to be back for the next season, but they took the deduction and accepted they'd have to wait a little longer. Whilst Onana eventually returned to Ajax starting lineup against Besiktas in the Champions League, with his actual first game back coming on the 13th of November for Cameroon in a Qatar World Cup qualifier. However, by the time he could return, it seemed Ajax had phased him out of the first team. Perhaps this was another incident in a long list for Onana, who went on to make only 6 appearances in the league for Ajax that season and was eventually sold to Inter Milan for 12 million. At Inter though, Onana has revived his career. He became a regular in Serie A and put on a fantastic showing in the Champions League. 13 games, 8 clean sheets and only 11 goals conceded. The Cameroon international may have had a slight blip, but he's back to full force. No doping bans since his time at Ajax as well. Well done, André. So what kind of keeper can United expect? Well, he's someone who understands the Ajax system of play, total football. He understands the importance of passing out from the back and using his feet. And after 5 years together at Ajax, Onana will slot right in to Ten Hag's new Manchester United. Based on that, I genuinely don't think there's a better or more realistic option on the market. It is the perfect signing for Manchester United. As long as Onana can stay out of trouble off the field, which he's certainly struggled with in his career so far, André Onana could well be the man to take United back to the very top.